Hello everybody, today we're going to be reading Known Item Search and Subject Search by Michael K. Buckland, and this is from the latest issue of LR&TS, Library Resources and Technical Services, and hopefully I can get this recording done, because I've done two 20-minute recordings, both of which have crashed on a different article that, yeah, I fancied a little bit more, but I am tired of rereading it a bunch of times, so. Alright, this one's shorter, so we're hoping we can get this in. The traditional distinction between known item search and subject search is analyzed drawing on Robert Paget's distinction between particulars and specimens, the distinction between objects and their properties, Robert Fugman's distinction between individual concepts and general concepts, and the difference between referring and describing. The resulting analysis coincides with E.J. Lowe's four-category ontology. So this is some nice intellectual stimulation for those of you that are like, Days, you do too much hands-on stuff. There has long been much interest in different aspects of search strategies, search interfaces, search engine optimization, and more. There is a large applied literature on this, and notably a study of web searches by Andre Broder, who categorized web queries as informational, navigational, or transactional. Many studies have been concerned with categorizing searches based on log files or user behavior. Much of this work is empirical, terminology is not standardized, and theoretical distinctions are not always clear. My purpose is different in context and approach. First, I am concerned with searches in library catalogs and comparable bibliographic sources. Second, my approach is conceptual and theoretical. Third, my approach is independent of technology. Good practice is technology specific. Good theory is technology independent, equally applicable in principle to printed, digital, or any other technology. I agree. This is why the paper I wrote on blockchain is just so vague. Fourth, my point of departure is the traditional library distinction between known item searches and subject searches, a distinction which appears to have had little attention beyond passing mention in introductory text and rather meager commentary. So in this article, I offer a fuller analysis. Good for you. Known item search is ordinarily understood to mean a search where the searcher has a specific item in mind and either has an address for it or else believes or hopes that sufficient clues, such as author, surname, and/or title words, will enable that particular document to be found. It is, in effect, a citation search with commonly an incomplete or uncertain citation. Known item search is traditionally distinguished from subject search. Strictly, this is an incomplete view because the logical complement of a known item search has to be a not known item search. Subject search is a common kind of not known item search in the library context, but it is not the only kind. The many other possibilities include, for example, searches by genre, bestsellers, and banned books. In a library or other bibliographic contexts, known item searches are often not, in fact, for a particular known item, but more loosely for any instance of a particular known edition or an instance of any edition of a particular known title. This is a departure from the pure case of search for a unique particular document. Relaxing the focus to any instance of a known edition or a known title reduces the practical difficulty but does not change the underlying analysis. So, Professor Emeritus, University of California. Okay, so retired, but, still talking theory. Two other distinctions provide basis for fuller analysis and will be described below. The difference between a particular and a specimen, the difference between material and non-material properties. Alright, lay it on me. Particulars and specimens. I use particular in a strict sense. Every actual individual physical document, whether paper, microfilm, electronic, or in any other form, is a material, physical object, and as such, it is unique. No other physical document, even if digital, no matter how similar, can occupy the exact same point in space and time. True. Fourth dimension. Each is an individual. We may say that nothing else can be the same, but the word same is unreliable because of its ambiguity. Same can mean acceptably similar for some practical purpose, as in the phrase, it's all the same to me, or it can mean not different, as in we were on the same flight. German avoids this ambiguity by use of separate terms gleich and derselbe, respectively. And I probably mangled that, my German is not good. A specimen, in contrast, denotes any member of a set of examples sharing some defining attributes, such as plants of the same species or printed books of the same edition. Thank you for this definition, because I teach about specimens in the objects class, and I can never articulate this very well. It's like, it's a type example. Yeah. This is very similar to the type token distinction, where items deemed the same are referred to as tokens of some type, and also to the individual kind distinction, by which items judged to be in some sense the same are said to be individuals of some kind. The particular specimen distinction has a small but important difference. Specimens are defined by the sharing of some attribute or property, but may be quite different in other ways. The type token and individual kind distinctions are tidy and useful in formal logic. Yes, they are. The particular specimen distinction is characteristic of an untidy world. Amen. Different feline species, such as lion, tiger, and cat, are all specimens of the mammalian family, Felidae, but the species are otherwise quite different. and the specimens of each species have individual personal differences. The status of being a specimen, therefore, is defined by sharing some property or attribute by particulars that may in other ways differ. Okay, now there's some intellectual underpinning. I should have gotten this earlier in my career. So, documentary particulars and specimens. The particular specimen distinction seems rarely mentioned in bibliographic or library literature, but a brief and colorful discussion was provided by Robert Paget in 1948. Paget shared the European documentalists' expansive definition of document, which included any material object from which one might learn. In an essay on the cultural role of documents in a society, Paget distinguished particulars, which he called auto-documents, as they only represent themselves, and specimens as follows. Specimens and auto-documents. A unique object or member of a collection of similars perhaps kept and used as a document about the domain to which it belongs, or even about its own objective properties as an individual or of a type. In the second case, it is a matter of a specimen, an anonymous Egyptian mummy, a gorilla in a cage, a piece of rock crystal. In the first case, the document transmits information about itself, Napoleon's hat, a unique meteorite. It is therefore an auto-document. Okay, kind of followed that. Paget does not appear to have published any development of this analysis. If he had, he could have added that every one of his examples could be regarded either as a particular or as a specimen. Paget's specimens could also be regarded as particulars. Oh god, this reminds me of we're back to the serials and periodicals, tautologies. An individual gorilla in a cage can indeed be considered a specimen of the genus gorilla, or of primates, or of zoo favorites, or of any other imaginable kind. But gorillas nevertheless also exist as individuals. Each one has a mother, a unique life story, distinct personality, and its own pattern of behavior. Napoleon's hat may be a unique artifact, but it could also be regarded as a specimen of the headwear of its period, or of Napoleon's possessions, for example. So every document, and indeed every material object, is always necessarily a particular, but may also be regarded as a specimen in an unlimited number of ways. Oh dear, classification headaches. The choice of how it is regarded in any given circumstances depends on the nature of a subject's interest in it. Ways in which a particular may be a specimen appear to be limited only by one's imagination. So it is hard to imagine how any particular could not also be a specimen. Philosopher E.J. Lowe goes further and declares no particular is not also a specimen. Individuals are only individuable at all qua instances of some species or sort. There are no bare particulars, only individual exemplars or samples of this or that kind. Lowe does not appear to explain why this is so, but all material objects, hence all documents, exist in space and time, so, at the very least, they must have spatio-temporal properties, and it is properties that make individuals of a kind. Also, presumably, an individual without properties would not be discernible. Yeah, that makes sense. So we are all individual particulars, but we're also part of a type of a specimens. Okay. Material and non-material properties. Material properties are the physical attributes, the brute facts of a document, such as the title printed, author's name is given, literal text, as well as physical features such as height, pages, binding, and other objective characteristics. Its non-material properties are any imaginable characteristics other than the material properties, including ownership, topic success, point of view, copyright status, genre, and language of text. Material and non-material properties are different in kind, but that does not mean they cannot be associated. A book's physical format and any topic discussed in it are different in nature, although they are sometimes associated closely enough with the topic, or at least the genre, to be inferred from the physical form. These two distinctions, particulars and specimens, individuals and kinds, material and non-material abstract properties, can be used to form four combinations as shown in Table 1. These four combinations and the differences between them can be illustrated with a worked example. For this purpose, we will use a book that is in Thomas Jefferson's personal library. Example, Jefferson's Bodin. American colonists wanting to justify independence from the British monarchy were attracted by the idea that sovereignty was somehow conferred on a ruler by the population, that this consent could be retracted. But awkwardly, there was no known historical precedent for this convenient contractual theory. Thomas Jefferson, however, found one, his copy of Jean Bodin's Les Six Livres de la République, the Six Books of the Republic, Paris 1580, in which Bodin described the ritual whereby Slovene peasants interrogated each prospective Duke of Carinthia before allowing him to assume power. Jefferson marked the passage on page 129 of his copy. Thus, we have a historically significant instance among the many copies of one of the numerous editions of this title. Among the many possibilities, we can illustrate the situation using Table 1 to distinguish four cases. So here's our Table 1, set of material objects, shared properties, particular object, particulars properties. So, and then in this case we have, specimens, copies of Bodin's République, Paris 1580, Shared non-material property of the specimens, e.g. authorship to Jean Baudin, a particular material object, Jefferson's annotated copy, and then non-material properties of the particular, so Jefferson's copy as in owned by Jefferson. So those are the 4 views displayed according to the arrangement in Table 1. All right, differences in searching. Searching for specific citations is unlike subject searching, much like hunting is unlike farming, wrote Donald W. Crummell. The spatial difference is apt. The location of the farm is known to the farmer, but the location of the prey is not known to the hunter. A closer parallel would be the difference between having an address and looking for a house as compared with only having a description of the building. Known items generally have names or addresses or distinguishing physical features. Further, the known item target is quite specific, even if the details are incomplete. In contrast, the resources responsive to a subject search may be numerous, varied, and widely dispersed even for a narrowly defined topic. Indexing theorist Robert Fugman described the difference between searches for highly specific individual concepts and searches for general concepts, which are broad and may subsume many concepts that are more specific. Fugman does not use the terms known item search and not known item, but his arguments appear sufficiently similar to be applicable, and his examples of individual concepts are persons, institutions, and towns, all with proper names, and which occur in single or very few instances. For these, he argues, natural language searches are generally sufficient. It is typical of individual concepts that they are represented with good predictability and perfect fidelity even in the natural language of the author. As examples of general concepts, he cites classes of organisms, properties, substances, and processes, such as the eradication of malaria-transmitting insects by new pesticides. In these cases, there are many possible named targets and a tendency towards a multiplicity of diverse narrative descriptions using varied terminology. In this situation, reliance on natural language searching is inefficient and vocabulary control is desirable. Oh, yeah. You ain't West Winn-Dixie. All right. Fugman rightly stresses the use of proper names to refer to individual concepts, but proper names may also be used to describe dispositively. Authors' names are ordinarily associated with known item searches for particular books, but in the humanities, unlike the sciences, searches also make very heavy use of proper names for topic searching, especially for the difficult task of finding writings about a person's work or impact. That is an example of how search practice can vary between different domains. The difference between naming what is wanted in a known item search and specifying what is desired in a not known item search corresponds to the distinction between referring and describing. Referring indicates directly, describing indicates indirectly by specifying characteristics which may in turn indicate appropriate targets. In a traditional digital database, one looks up the name of a record of interest in the appropriate table with possibly a data dictionary to resolve any ambiguity. In a full text search, one searches using descriptors, closely related terms of vocabulary control, which one hopes will indicate a small enough set to allow selection of any one or more suitable items without missing other, more suitable items. Strawson's distinction between referring and describing corresponds to Lowe's distinction between individual terms, referring to singular items, and sortal terms, referring to divisible sets, sorts, kinds of items. Kind of makes sense. All right, search sequences. Searches do not, of course, occur only in isolation. One subject search is likely to lead to another, and a known item search may well lead to another different known item search. The two different kinds of search are sometimes used in conjunction. Here I note just 2 of many possibilities. Via set to known item. This can be an efficient process, especially if the details of a known item search are complex and or incomplete. To start with a subject search that yields a retrieved set small enough that the known item becomes easily recognizable. For example, a title word search might be a convenient path if the author's name is hard to spell. The needle in the proverbial haystack has been recontextualized as a needle in a pincushion. Okay. Via known item to set. Any particular book can lead to others like it. A nice example I used when teaching at Berkeley some years ago is an exercise that instructed students to do a subject search for books about the Vietnam War and to report the number found. At the time, the online catalog in use supported by search by Library of Congress subject headings but lacked cross-references between them. A subject heading search using Vietnam War found no books at all, an implausible result. However, a title word search using Vietnam War would lead to a catalog record for a book about war, and inspection of the catalog record revealed the Library of Congress subject heading was the phrase Vietnamese conflict, which retrieved hundreds of books. Yes, this is a fun thing to learn about the Vietnam War. I can't remember if they ever actually fixed this, but yeah, it drives me nuts because I'm like, yes, technically we did not declare war, but yeah. We're back to natural language parsing and the Library of Congress catching up to society. Anyway, figure 1 shows these 4 kinds of search in relation to the same 4-category table. So we have the known item search, so particular to particular, subject search, or not known item search, so yeah, describing subject search, and so you get a set of material objects. Via the known item to the set, so you go out and you get more specimens. And via the set back to the known item, so you start with broad and narrow it down. All right. Lowe's 4-category ontology. The tables above were derived by combining Paget's distinction between specimens and particulars with Fugman's distinction between individual concepts and general concepts. The resulting four combinations were found to coincide with the four-category structure of philosopher E.J. Lowe's metaphysical analysis of the natural world. Lowe's terminology differs from mine, but there are kinds of objects, substantial universals, characterized by properties and relations, non-substantial universals, and these are instantiated by particular objects, individual substances, and particular properties, tropes, modes, respectively, as shown in Figure 2. So we have properties are instantiated by modes, okay, so made physical by certain modes, kinds are instantiated by objects, made physical by individual objects, so modes are characterized by current properties, and properties disposed into instantiations, and I don't know where arrow 3 is, but we have arrow 4. That's a little confusing to me, but alright. Lowe's immanent realistic approach is concerned with theorizing the existence and properties of objects, and Lowe's view any particular object is characterized by properties in two different ways. Directly by any property specifically attributed to it, Lowe's mode, and indirectly because any property attributed to a kind is also by implication exemplified more or less by the individual objects of that kind, as can be seen in Figure 2. Lowe notes a difference between these direct and indirect attributions. A concurrent attribution might be a statement such as, "This stuff is dissolving in water," an actually occurring characteristic of a particular object. The indirect dispositional exemplified attribution arising from the individual status as a specimen of a kind is illustrated by a general statement such as, "This stuff dissolves in water," which Lowe calls dispositive, meaning a general tendency which might not obtain under all circumstances, for example, at temperatures below freezing. Lowe does not mention search, but as a practical matter, search is the use of properties to find objects, so the relevance is clear. Of the four types of search enumerated in Figure 1, 3 are shown in Figure 2. Search type known item search is shown by the arrow labeled current properties. Type 4 via set to known item by the arrow labeled exemplified by. Subject search can be considered implicit in dispositional properties arrow. Lowe makes no mention of type 3. Okay, I'm not the only one wondering where that arrow is via known item to set. So summary and conclusion. The traditional distinction between known item search and subject search is commonly mentioned but has received little examination. This paper provides clarification and a formal analysis. Relevant work was found to use quite varied terminology. Known item search is understood to mean a search where the searcher has a specific item in mind and either an address or clues expected to be sufficient to find it. Strictly a known item search is for a unique document, but the term is also used more loosely for searches of any copy of a specific edition or any copy of any edition of a specific title. Logically, the complement of a known item search is a not known item search, but the common type subject search has remained the customary term. This analysis uses two basic distinctions. The first is between a unique object, a particular, and a specimen, an object with properties shared by other objects. Any given document can be regarded as either a particular or specimen depending on the purpose. The second basic distinction is between material objects themselves and the properties associated with them. All searches use properties as criteria. Common names are authorship, call number, or subject descriptor. Natural language, especially the use of proper nouns, is likely to be effective for known item searches. In contrast, properties attributed to a set will apply indirectly to many objects as may share that property in varying degrees. Vocabulary control is generally needed for efficient subject searching. The difference between naming a wanted known item and specifying what is desired in a not known item search corresponds to the distinction between referring and describing. Directly assigned attributes can be expected to be specific and significant, but indirectly assigned properties less likely so. A property attributed to a kind will apply to potentially a very large set of individuals who may share that attribute in varying degrees. Each individual can be expected to also have many other significant attributes. The indirect property may constitute a very small part of the attributes of some individuals. In consequence, generic indirect properties will be suitable for searches for any example or for all examples of some specified kind, as in subject searches. Generic properties can also be used to identify particular individuals, but that process tends to be relatively inefficient. In brief, the selective power of generic concepts is relatively weak when known items are sought compared with using specific properties directly attributed to the sought particular, which kind of makes sense. I don't know if we had to write a whole paper about that, but it's true. Combining the distinction between particular documents and kinds of documents with a division between material objects and non-material properties provides a 2x2 structure that is useful for discussion. The matrix coincides with the four-category ontological framework advanced by philosopher E.J. Lowe. The known item search and subject search distinction can be understood as a distinction between searching for a particular document and searching for a property. I thank the University of California, Berkeley, frowns Berkeley Fund for its support. Somebody funded this too. Okay. We'll set that aside. Mr. Buckland, thank you so much for sharing this with us. I'm sure you've been in the field a much, much longer time than the majority of my viewers.